Hello and Merry Christmas! It is the holiday season, which is one of my personal favorite times of the year, and I've been very busy with things like wrapping presents, putting up decorations, listening to Christmas music. It's really been a great month. I love December, y'all. And I decided that this would be a great year to read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Now, it's not the first time that I've read it, and it's definitely not the first time that I've heard the story. Like probably many of y'all, I have watched A Christmas Carol pretty much every year for most of my life. Different variations of it, there are a zillion different movie versions, but it's a story that I'm very familiar with. I've actually only read the book once before though, and it was about a decade ago, so I figured it would be a great one to do for catching up on the classics. In any case, I really enjoyed it, and I have a lot of thoughts, so let's get started. One thing that I think is really interesting about A Christmas Carol that I think sometimes gets lost in translation depending on which movie version you watch and how much you know about the culture of the time and the social issues of the time and whatnot, but A Christmas Carol is full of social commentary. From talking about the surplus population and wanting to close the bakeries on Sundays when that is the only day that the poor can heat their food there, to, questions like, are there no prisons, are there no workhouses, and all of that. It's not just a story about a mean old man who learns to love Christmas. It's a story about a man who is really living a cruel and heartless life, whose attitudes and actions really are just very hostile towards his fellow human beings, and who learns to be more open-hearted and compassionate. And that is actually one of my favorite things about A Christmas Carol. I think there are so many movies out there that are about someone who is kind of grumpy and not in the holiday spirit and learns to love Christmas, and I like some of those movies just for their own sake. But I think that one thing that makes A Christmas Carol really unique and different is that it's not just, you learn to enjoy putting up the Christmas tree and giving people gifts and stuff like that. It's really about, I think when we think about the holiday season, we think of it as a time, I think Scrooge's nephew kind of expresses this opinion, and I think it's still true today. It's a time when we kind of ideally look past our differences, draw near to those we love, and are compassionate towards all people, even those we don't really know. There are so many opportunities to give to charity, to donate toys or food or, various things for people whose Christmas or whatever holiday they celebrate may not be all that they want it to be. We see it in, going to visit family that maybe we don't see the rest of the year. And it's a time when things that kind of go against that, like the way that Scrooge treats Bob Cratchit, for instance, just really seem especially harsh. I have a lot of thoughts about the three ghosts. I don't think I've ever seen a version of The Ghost of Christmas Past in like a movie or anything that really encapsulated what it was in the original. I wonder if maybe The Ghost of Christmas Past is the most difficult one to get right. I think the movie from 2012 came pretty close, but there's just something about it that, I really didn't like the part where it like goes into outer space and then comes crashing back down and whatnot. That just seemed very, like, why is that happening? I know it's because it was 3D and they wanted something cool in 3D to happen. But in any case, I really like the idea of the ghost being kind of like a candle though, and the thing with the light and all of that. And the interesting thing about The Ghost of Christmas Past for me is that it shows him not Christmases in the distant past, but Christmases in his own past. And so many things seem to happen to him on Christmas. First, being alone at school when everybody else has gone home to their families, and then his girlfriend breaking up with him, his fiancé breaking up with him, the death of his former business partner. There seem to have been a lot of turning points in his life that happened around Christmas. And I kind of wonder if that is part of the reason that he doesn't really like Christmas very much. Obviously there's an aspect of he's just kind of a bitter, sour person who doesn't like anything or anyone very much, and Christmas to him, it doesn't bring him any profit, and therefore it's something that he sees as a colossal waste of time and resources. Never mind the fact that it brings people joy and brings them together with their loved ones and all of that. It doesn't line his pockets. But then I also do wonder if maybe being broken up with on Christmas and having his business partner die on Christmas, and some of the other things that happened to him, it not being really a cause for celebration when he was a kid, for instance. I wonder if some of that did contribute to him kind of seeing it as, bah, humbug. The Ghost of Christmas Present is probably my favorite. When I was a kid, it was The Ghost of Christmas Past, because I really thought that the idea of, seeing your past Christmases was really cool. But I really, as an adult, like The Ghost of Christmas Present a lot. The way that it shows him what other people are doing on Christmas, and either the joy that it brings them or the things that they're going through, or, a combination of those, because, like, the Cratchits, for instance, they're poor and they have a son who is, very sick and whatnot, but they still find things to celebrate in Christmas, and it's just such a contrast to the way that he's living. I think that that's a really powerful kind of contrast to make. When I used to watch different adaptations of A Christmas Carol as a kid, The Ghost of Christmas Future really scared me. Like, it just, not that I was afraid of it, like, I didn't have nightmares about it or think that it was, gonna come and get me, like, the monster under your bed or whatever. But I just found it to be really creepy and unsettling, and I didn't like that part of the movie. And it is creepy and unsettling. It absolutely is. It's really interesting, though. I think that by that point, Scrooge is already really starting to rethink things, from seeing his own past and seeing what's going on at the present and talking to Jacob Marley. He really is starting to rethink his attitude and the way that he is acting and living his life. But I think without seeing where it all ends and where it all leads, it might have eventually just, whatever. It was a bad dream and it doesn't matter and bah, humbug. I think seeing where it all would end and, being confronted with the fact that he's not going to live forever and thinking about how he wants to be remembered and how he wants to, what legacy he wants to leave. It's not the fact that it looks like the Grim Reaper that should be scary, I think. It's the fact that, we're all mortal, we're all gonna die at some point, but it's what he leaves behind in that future that it shows him and the way that people talk about him, and the fact that the only emotion anybody feels about his death is happiness and relief that they no longer owe him money. Nobody wants to be remembered as someone that nobody loved and that did no good for anyone but themselves. At least I would hope not. It's a lot to try to wrap your head around, and I can see why it impacts him so strongly. It packs a powerful punch, and I think it really kind of seals the deal in terms of he figures out that he can't keep living life the way that he has. In any case, A Christmas Carol is one of my favorite stories relating to Christmas, and if you haven't read it, I would strongly recommend checking it out. I hope you enjoyed this video. I talk a lot about classic literature on this channel, along with writing, literary concepts, college and study tips, and book recommendations. So if you'd like to see more on any of those topics, feel free to subscribe. Have a great holiday season, and I'll see y'all in the next video.